Coming up next on Columbus Connections, we're talking to the Links Incorporated and LifeLink of Georgia about how you can be a lifesaver. Stay tuned. I am your host, David Britt, and today we have a great topic. Now, we've heard those stories before where someone is in dire need of maybe a kidney transplant, and they're looking for donors, and they're searching, and time is running out, and they find that donor at the last minute, and they're saved, right? We hear of those things. Well, we're going to talk about kind of the back of that and how that happens and how you can help, a way that you can possibly save over 70 lives. Now, there's a great organization in Columbus. Well, actually, it's a national organization, but there's a chapter here that are helping, not just with this, with a lot of great community things. We're going to talk to them, and we're also going to get back to talking to LifeLink of Georgia. Now, I have with me two awesome guests. One is Miss Gloria Thomas, and you're with the Links Incorporated.
Yes.
And one is Miss Kendra Wright, and you're with LifeLink of Georgia.
Yes.
And welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Thomas, tell us about the Links Incorporated, because you ladies do some awesome work throughout the community.
Right. Yes, the Links Incorporated is an organization was started in 1946 by two visionary females. The name was Margaret Hawkins and Sarah Scott. And they wanted to make sure that women are committed, and they wanted to make sure that they were enriching and sustaining and increasing the survivability of African Americans. So that was the main purpose of the organization. And they had 7 other ladies who came with them with the organization, and it has survived long. But I'm personally in the Columbus, Georgia chapter of the Links Incorporated here in Columbus, and we've been at a chapter here since 1964.
And you ladies do some awesome work, like we said. And one thing that you're doing, tell me about this part of the Links that you're working with.
Yes. With my role in the Links, I am the chair of the Health and Human Services facet, and that's all about health and all. And we are a part of the Linkage to Life. Mm-hmm. The National Links organization has this signature program, which is called the Linkage to Life, and it's basically to address things like registration for a donation for organs, for tissue, for eyes, and for bone marrow. It wants to address some of the disparities in the Black community for donor registration and donor transplantation. And even in our organization, we experience it with someone in our organization who's had transplant and things like that. So we really want this to, go well.
So this really hits home with you, because one of your fellow Links is a recipient.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, and it's a signature program for us.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Nice. Now, as I understand, you're an RN by trade, so this really is big for you. Why is it so important to the Links organization to be in this initiative?
It's important because a lot of times with the Black community, a lot of times they're forgotten. Maybe like for being on a donor registration list and for transplantation, a lot of times it's probably, we want it to be more level, more equal, but we're trying to make sure that we're getting the word out so everybody can understand about organ donation and transplantation in the Black community.
Right. And now, Kendra, that is your profession. You are an educator. You're going out in the field and educating people about this. And it's one of those things that people can be very apprehensive about. Yes. So as an educator, what are some of the things that is important that we know about it?
Sure. Well, just backing up a little bit, LifeLink of Georgia is an organ procurement organization, or OPO. There are 52 other OPOs in the country, and LifeLink has 30. So there's LifeLink of Georgia, Florida, and Puerto Rico. So if you're an organ donor, we are the actual organization that comes in to actually retrieve those organs from the donor. And there's a lot of work that is involved in getting those organs from that donor to those recipients. Lots of coordination, takes a team effort to make that happen. So my role as an education specialist is to educate the community on the importance of organ and tissue donation. So that could be anything from going to a health fair, setting up at a blood drive, going to talk to, the health ministry at your church.
Right.
We love to go into high schools and educate students on what organ donation is, so that when they go get their license, it's not the first time that they're seeing what's organ donation and having to check that box,
Right.
yes or no.
Without knowing.
Right. We want to give them the information so that they can make an informed decision themselves, because there are a lot of myths out in the community, and your mom may say don't do it, but you don't really know why.
Right.
So
And
we
we're
just
talk about the myths, but I want to first talk about the need, because there's a great need nationally and as far as in this state, correct?
Yes, so
Talk about that need. What does it
nationally, there are about 112,000 people currently waiting
Wow.
for life-saving organs, which is huge. All those people would not fit into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium if you've ever been there before.
Yeah.
Um,
Now,
and-
that's like we talked about that before we aired, and we say it, but just think, you're watching a game, and it's Falcons versus Saints, so everything is sold out.
Exactly.
And every person in that stadium, the number of people in need of donations exceeds
It's great,
that.
yep. They'd
That's
be
big.
waiting outside. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's huge. So in Georgia specifically, there are over 5,000 people waiting for life-saving organs. And of those, there is a disparity in the African American community, because we make up over half of the people waiting, about 67%. And the majority of us are waiting for kidneys, about 97%. So the majority of us that are waiting are actually waiting for kidneys, and that is often because we have diabetes, and a lot of times it is because we don't always live the best lifestyles, so we often end up becoming diabetic. So
it's
we
part of
also
your education preventative too, to have
yeah
how to
so
not need the
for sure. We actually just formed a partnership with Balm and Gilead, which is basically an organization that helps pre-diabetics. So if you're pre-diabetic, they do a bunch of screenings, and they basically help you get back on track so you don't tip the scale to become,
Literally figuratively,
right,
yeah.
so you don't become diabetic. They kind of get you back on track.
Yeah.
So, yes, my goal is obviously to get people registered, but if we can keep people off of the list, that's that's good too. So either way, it works hand in hand.
Yeah. Let's clear up some of the misconceptions that are out there, because I'm sure you've come across them all. People are sometimes just afraid of just the term or just the idea of organ donation.
Right. There are a lot of myths. There's a black market. People talk about that. And in some of the countries outside of the United States, I can't say what that looks like or not. The other thing you may hear is that if I'm in an accident and I have a little heart on my license that shows I'm an organ donor, they're not going to save my life, and that's not true. Our EMS and our medical community is trained to save lives, and ethically they have to save your life. They're not going to go in your purse and look for your license and say, oh, they're an organ donor, I'm not going to save their life. I'm trying to think of other myths out there, but those are some of the bigger ones that we hear about. People are being killed and their organs are, being taken. But if you understand the process of how an organ can only live outside of the body for a certain period of time.
Right.
There are tests that have to be done on that organ to make sure that organ you're putting inside another person matches the blood type and all. So it's a process for that to happen.
Right.
So I personally wouldn't want somebody else's organs if I didn't know
Right,
where they were
had to
coming
put-
from, right? But
Amazon or something.
exactly.
And the thing is, people talk about the myths until it's their grandmother. that
Oh,
usually
for
get 'em.
sure. Yes, for
yeah.
sure. It doesn't, I always say it doesn't affect you until it affects you.
Yeah.
Until it's your mom or your grandmother or whoever. The other thing we say is if you are an organ donor, please tell your family.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people sign up and they say, my daughter was registered, but I didn't know, I don't want to give her organs, but these were her wishes. She said yes, or she signed this piece of paper. There's an action you have to take to make that happen. So we always encourage people to do that because we talk about how we want to be buried or the songs we
Yeah.
want sung at our funeral
Right.
and things like that, but we don't ever talk about organ donation. So we just encourage people to have those conversations with your family.
And how many people, how many lives can be saved by one human, one person
So
deciding to donate?
Sure. So if one person, if you could give all of your organs, you could save up to 8 lives, which is huge. And if you give tissue, which a lot of people don't know about, which are like bones, your tendons, ligaments, you can give your heart valves, you can save up to, 70 people. So there are a lot, I mean, I've seen an Achilles, tendon, that, they last a really, the shelf life is a really long time. A lot of times orthopedic surgeons use them in their surgeries. They use, bone shards and all types of things that we get, from tissue donors. So the majority of people can give tissue, whereas most people may not be able to give organs because, your heart has to still be beating
Right.
in order for that to happen, which usually happens in a hospital setting. So that's usually only 1 to 2% of registered donors. The majority of us could give something related to tissue, though.
Right. And these donations are done in a way where it won't affect the services. If you still want to be seen in your final service, you still can be seen just the same as otherwise.
For sure, that's a great question or comment to make, because a lot of people don't understand that we take the time to ask the family those questions. We have family care coordinators is what we call them. They work with those families once that decision has been made, or not, rather, they work with those families. I'm going to pause and say this answer again. So the family care coordinators we work with, they work with the families to help educate them if that person's not a donor or if they are an organ donor. They work to help educate them about, what organs they can give. So they will ask those questions around, well, when do you want this person to be buried? That may determine how many organs they can give. Do you want their arms folded? If that's the case, we wouldn't take their bones if they were
Right.
going to want them to give their tissue. We would know how far down to make an incision if they wanted to wear a V-neck shirt. So there are very specific questions we ask based on the wishes of the family and their loved one.
Yeah. And I think maybe that may be some of the problem. People don't like to talk about mortality. And they certainly get scared about talking about, what would happen to their bodies, as whether they're in faith or not.
Right.
But these are things that are, like we said before, you don't think about it until you need it, until it's not even your grandmother, your daughter may
Right.
need an organ.
Right.
Anyone, we're just one medical emergency away, one car accident
Oh my gosh,
away.
yes, for sure.
So it's something that definitely needs to be thought about. It's what kind of, we're all going to leave this earth, but when we leave, we talk about generational wealth.
Yeah.
This is a way to continue a part of our legacy,
Your
a way to
legacy.
show that we were here and make our mark in another family, another life.
For sure. And in my role, I also work a lot with volunteers and lean a lot on volunteers to help share their stories. And in the short time that I've been in my role, just to hear the stories of, I was sent home, I was going to die, and I got a call and I got a liver, or, I got a kidney, or, my wife was a match and I was able to get a kidney, or I got a heart. Just to hear those stories is so impactful. Every year LifeLink does a celebration of life. They bring back donor families. And we just had it a couple of weeks ago. They do them in Atlanta, in Statesboro, and they invite all the families back. And it's such a powerful celebration. And just to hear every family have the opportunity to say something about their loved one, but to hear the stories, and you know that it could have been me, it could have been you, it could have been anybody talking about their loved one, and some of them were kids, 20 or 30, years old, young people that have passed away, but they chose to say yes to organ donation. It's really impactful. There wasn't, I don't think, a dry eye, in the place, because it is, while it is, it's like the silver lining, right, in everything that's happening. But it's just really impactful when you hear those stories from people. So, I always encourage people to go to YouTube. If you don't know somebody, just Google organ, donation, or organ donors, and
kind of
tons
just
of
see.
stories will come up.
And it kind of shows you the
yes.
other side of it. Now, if somebody is looking, maybe whether they want to donate, or maybe they just want to get more information and start learning about it, or maybe they just want to reach out to your organization. And, because there's a misconception about as far as the harvesting. You're a nonprofit organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How can people look into it? How can people sign up? How can people make that next step?
Sure. So if they're interested in registering, they can go to donatelifegeorgia.org. They can actually learn more about organ donation there, or they can actually register to become a donor if they're interested. They can also reach out to me. I'm Kendra Wright. My cell phone, or my work phone rather, is 706-566-0146, or my email is kendra.wright@lifelinkfound.org.
Awesome. And thank you so much for the work that you do, because I know it can be tiresome, but it seems so rewarding. I can
Oh, very
definitely tell
much
how passionate you are about it.
Yeah.
And thank you to the Links for taking this, something that is so, there are so many needs in our community, but sometimes this one goes unnoticed. So thank you all
sure.
for taking
Well,
the
thank
lead
you
on
for
this.
taking time to highlight this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's huge, yeah, for sure.
So definitely go find out if you're still apprehensive, by all means, find out about it for yourself. But know that in the end of your life, because we're all going to come to an end, but your ending can be someone else's beginning and someone else's continuation. Thanks for watching. This is Columbus Connections.